Tomb of Annihilation.
Hello guys, welcome to my brand new show. We're going to be doing a D&D podcast. We're going to be running through the Tomb of Annihilation, and here I have a couple of friends with me. Let's all introduce ourselves. I'm Vince from Netflix and Chill, and this is...
My name is Blaine, I'm the DM.
I'm Krista.
Let's see, I'm Michael.
I'm Tiara.
I'm Baza.
And I'm Nick from New York.
And for our characters, we have... Mine is Yotru Thesdaz. I think that's how you pronounce it anyway. He's a lizard folk barbarian. He's a green scaly boy.
Oh, mine is Qualu. He is a human ranger.
My name is Meplibrisk. I am a deep gnome wizard.
My character is a Tempest Domain Cleric Turtle.
My character's name is Wave on the Shore. She's a Tabaxi rogue.
My character is a blue saurian, basically a dino boy with blue Heidi boy. And he is a druid.
So we're going to be playing Tomb of Annihilation. The talk of the streets and taverns has all been about the so-called death curse, a wasting disease afflicting everyone who's ever been raised from the dead. Victims grow thinner and weaker each day, slowly but steadily sliding towards the death they once denied. When they finally succumb, they can't be raised, and neither can anyone else, regardless of whether they've ever received that miracle in the past. Temples and scholars of divine magic are at a loss to explain a curse that has affected the entire region, and possibly the entire world. Bam, bam, bam. So this adventure actually begins on the Sword Coast. Let me bring up some things real quick, and then we will begin.
Okay, do we want to do bios while we wait?
Yes, while I'm pulling up some information, we'll go around the circle, starting with Vinny. Read your character's bio so that we can get to know them.
So, I was raised as a single child to two loving parents on the streets of Baldur's Gate. While they didn't have much, the love they shared with me matched the hardships that came with living on the streets as a homeless lizard folk. Eventually, however, the racism from the city became too much, and my family was forced to move out to the Cloakwood Forest to live amongst nature as lizard folk should. Things were going pretty well until a night had caused a blight to ravage through the forest, killing my family and leaving me all alone at the tender age of 15. That night, I lost control, feeling the rage of a barbarian for the first time in my life as I took out my grief and suffering on some poor, helpless owlbear. Now I wander the Sword Coast, slowly learning to harness my newfound power while I plot the death of the night hag that took everything away from me. Rita?
Hi, Qualu again, expert archaeologist and novice archer. The beginnings of my life are rather sad. My mother being murdered shortly after birth and my father disappearing while on an expedition shortly after I turned 12. But my tribe took me in and cared for me like none of that ever happened. Even though the other children made fun of me, I made a few close friends, and I'm still friends with them to this day. Before my father left on his final expedition, he instilled a love of all things old and secret in me. Revealing the secrets of the forgotten and dead is the most amazing thing I can think of. This is how I began my career as an archaeologist. While researching the reason my father left, and possibly the reason why he never came back, I found some interesting clues. The first being that he was searching for the Eye of Vecna. I also heard rumors that he may have actually found it. I have also heard whispers of a lost artifact called the Sword of Kos. If the rumors are true, then this legendary sword was used to cut off the hand and gouge out the Eye of Vecna. As a result, the sword is attracted to the two items, and I just might be able to use this sword to find my father. An expedition like this is very dangerous and requires a lot of prep. So before I even start, I need to acquire enough funds. Oop, there's more. Sorry, guys. When I decided When I decided to start my own digs and jobs, I soon realized that this occupation can get very dangerous. From being able to navigate the intense surroundings of Chult, my homeland, to fending off the many beasts and undead, I knew that the boss, or as I like to be called, the coordinator, is in charge of protecting their companions and the camp in general. So I now dabble in archery, and I took it upon myself to learn at least the basics of navigation. When offered a very nice price, I accepted a very daring offer, a job on the Sword Coast. Unfortunately, I did not research my employer quite enough, for when we reached our destination, it was revealed that she was working for the Red Wizards of Thay, with a dastardly secret plan hidden beneath her mountain of lies. And that, my friends, is the story of how I made an enemy of Valindra's Shadowmantle. And in the process of this, I also cut off my access to an easy boat ride back home to my beloved Chult. Now all alone in a foreign land with no friends or money, I wandered my way over to the first town we landed on the Sword Coast, Baldur's Gate. There I found a quaint little inn called the Halfling's Delight, where I stayed a night for the last bit of my money and inquired about potentially lucrative digs around. The innkeep, Lila, was a very helpful halfling, pointing me in the right direction, so I exclusively post jobs in her tavern, always looking for the good help. It has been slow going so far, and it will take me quite a bit of time to get back home, but I'm determined to see my beautiful Chult someday. I met one of my friends through these job postings in the tavern. Her name is Wave on the Shore, and she may be young, but she sure is driven. She accepted one of my job offers, and while we were away from town, I got to telling her about my father and my plan to find him. She made me promise not to leave her out of such a juicy treasure-hunting adventure. Things are still rocky, and I'm still not home, but I feel that things have turned around for the better.
All right. Michael?
Alright. Well, unfortunately, I don't think anything that complex. My character is simply a deep gnome wizard who, after finding himself a little more outgoing and boisterous than most of those in his community in Underdark, he found himself leaving and in the apprenticeship in a wizard's tower. Shortly after that, he joined an adventuring group to continue his studies outside the walls of the tower. And since then, for the past probably close to 380 years, he's been out adventuring across the Sword Coast and all across the world. And when he heard about the Death Curse in Schultz, it sounded like a pretty good adventure and a pretty good chance to interact with some fellow academics.
All right. Tiara?
Glorious. My portal name is Zopa. Zopa was born on the beaches of the Snout of Omar. He was raised with 7 other siblings by his mother, who died shortly after he learned how to walk and talk. Unlike his siblings who left fairly early in life, Opa stayed at the fort he called home, Fort Ahoy, until he was 15, taught under a older turtle named Mudgraw. While he was there, he found himself in the midst of his first storm. Inspired by that storm, he became a Tempest Domain cleric. When he did turn 15 years old, he traveled just about anywhere he could, seeing all of the sights, meeting all of the people, where he is now currently on the Sword Coast, traveling with a good friend, helping him find peace in.
Okay, so Wave on the Shore was born on the Sword Coast, even though her parents immigrated from the land of Chult. Her father died on the trip over, but a cleric raised them back to life, and they have been working their entire lives to pay him back for his good deeds. As such, they live in poverty, so she has taken up thievery in order to feed them. So that doesn't necessarily always work in her favor, so she has a tendency to go to the local tavern called the Halfling's Delight, where Lila, the barkeep, gives her work so that she can provide food for her family when she can't steal what she needs. her father has recently become ill, and since there's been a rush of people who have become ill where the temples don't really know what's going on, she decided that she would leave home and try and raise money to find a cure and also hope to figure out what's going on so she could save her father. That's where she met Qualu on one of his digs in hopes to make money, but since she found his work very interesting, she stuck around because she's always into interesting things, and who knows, it might lead to the answer she's seeking about her father.
Alright, so Malakara, in short, is born and raised in Chult. He was born into a farming village outside a powerful city-state. And when one of the tyrants launched a military campaign, they drafted all the able-bodied men and women. He was forced to join. After seeing the brutality of war and what it brings, he did not care for it. So he abandoned the ways of tradition that the Saurian people covet, and now seeks to find enlightenment in the world as a druid. He met one of his closest friends, Zopa, and they traveled together. They currently reside in Baldur's Gate, and they do take a part in the pleasure of drinking at one of the local taverns with a really hearty barmaid.
So, disclaimer, guys, half of us are in different states. So, and we are doing this over Discord. Yep. Nick is in New York, Baza and Tiara are in Oregon. So there may be technological issues. If so, we apologize, but there's not really too much that we can do. We'll try to repeat ourselves if it comes up or say something to each other, but it can happen. So just be aware.
Alright, so, as I stated before, your characters have been brought together by Lila Halfbrood Brawler, which is a halfling barbarian female of a young 110 years old. She's the owner of the Halfling's Delight Tavern, and over the course of several years of your patronage has brought your characters together, and become somewhat of a grandmother to your party as a whole. Yeah. She's your grandmother in spirit. Alright, so, let's begin. It is a warm day in Baldur's Gate as you lay Lila to rest. Death came quickly. One day, your friends simply began to waste away. No cleric or paladin could stop the death curse from taking your cohort, just as the healers of Faerun couldn't stop the dreaded affliction from taking any who died in the past.
Lila, I didn't even get to say goodbye.
Explain, what?
You've seen many people gone before their time these last 10 days, but this hurts the most.
This wasn't supposed to happen.
How dare you?
You stand before a small crowd gathered at a shrine in Baldur's Gate. The cleric asks each of you to give a eulogy by sharing a memory of your friendship with Lila. The time for you to address the crowd is now.
Oh, I see.
Oh.
I don't think any of us.
We will begin with Yotru.
Thank you,
Share a
Brian.
memory of Lila that you have from the past.
I remember the first time we came across her tavern as urchins of the streets. And she offered us scraps of food in exchange for us helping clean up the bar after closing. It was the first time I knew of her generosity, and there were several times after that. That one is the most special.
The cleric puts his hand on your shoulder and says, "Thank you." Then, he moves on to the next in line and says, "Qualu, why don't you share a memory that you have of Lila?"
Oh, Lila was such a generous woman. And the way she was generous to me is different than the way she was generous to others. I always had jobs that needed taking, and she always knew people who needed jobs. That's how I met a great deal many of my friends. Through her, and her lovely tavern.
Cleric nods. Thank you. Nep?
Nep gently clears out and says, Lila,
think I'm going to miss gathering around that tavern. Those nights all of us came in together. All those nights that it was just you and me. The nights it was just you and me. Anyway, we'll be dearly missed, Lila.
The cleric turns to the portal and says, Opa, your turn is up.
Oh, my dear Lila. I'm gonna bow my head and say, well, the most fond memory I have is probably also the most embarrassing memory I have, if I'm to be honest with myself. You see, I'm not the best at dragon chess. And he's gonna start breaking down crying. Excuse me. What was I saying? Oh yes, I'm not the best at dragon chess. Oh, but our dear Lila was a sweet soul, and she let me win a round or two.
The cleric nods in his understanding. And now for a wave on the shore. Why don't you share a memory?
We want to starve. There were so many bad people. Why did they take Lila?
Oh, Qualu's gonna come up and hug you as you try to give your memory.
Oh.
Malachar will give a berry in hopes that will help nurture the injured soul.
The cleric looks grimly over at Malachara and says, and lastly, friend, it is your turn.
The old Saurian begins to turn pink in the cheeks and begins to speak in a higher pitched voice as I did not really know she gave drink and then cry.
The cleric pats your back and says, well, you did well enough.
Oh, I'm gonna rub your back too.
And then he turned his open and be like, you know I don't do well in front of people. I was gone for so long.
Okay, it's okay. It's okay.
I think I just start hyperventilating a bit. Now she's gone. I have no one to guide. No one to guide me. No.
I am here, friend. I am here, friend. It's okay. It's okay.
And for each of those, whether they be sad, inspirational, or even giggles for some of them, I think that all of those deserve an inspiration. Because I think those were well done. Especially since I put you on the spot.
How dare you?
Father Deafkin.
Right?
That was
Oh my gosh, that was amazing.
That was so good. I was like, oh, she even fake cried.
Yeah, you
Like,
scared me.
goddamn.
Like, you startled me.
Part of my VR recording, I was highly impressed.
Alright. After you give your eulogies, your friend is laid to rest. As the mourners begin to head home after saying their goodbyes to your friend, two people who stood at the back of the crowd approach.
Ignore me, I'm out of it.
One is a female sun elf, older but still spry, dressed in the noble finery of a northerner. The other is a more mysterious figure, draped in a heavy black cloak wearing a silver mask. The elf speaks. Beautiful ceremony. Clear, your friend meant a lot to you. The cloaked figure cuts in with a dry, raspy voice, one that reminds you of the way your friend spoke as death approached. There is a chance the deceased soul and countless others can be saved. If you act quickly, we may even be able to bring them back to life. And you can save those still living with the curse as well. The elf speaks again and says, we represent the Harpers. We're attempting to uncover the cause of the death curse. We believe that it's similar to the magic a lich uses to feed souls into his phylactery. And, as such, a lich would be able to trace the source of this death curse. For this, we need adventurers. My team is planning on raiding the lair of a lich named Zaldera Cordress, known as the Duchess of Rot, forcing the evil being to cooperate in tracking the source of the death curse. Zaldara's tower is in the nearby Cloakwood. It is close enough that the journey is easy from Baldur's Gate, but remote enough that no innocent people are put at risk during this raid. I believe the key to getting Zaldera to cooperate is to steal her phylactery. Harper wizards used scrying spells to determine that her phylactery is her spellbook, a tome bound in humanoid skin which she keeps locked in a vault in her basement. And this is why we need you. We wish to hire a small force of adventurers to sneak into Zaldera's cellar to look for her phylactery, while the main force of Harper's attacks the ground and upper floors of the tower to distract and weaken the Lich and her forces. I can offer you 1 potion of healing each up front and 500 gold as a reward upon completion of this job.
Okay.
Would you consider aiding the Harpers in ridding this world of the death curse?
Duty, anything for my dear beloved halfling.
As long as she could serve me again at the bar, I'm good.
I'm gonna continue rubbing Wave on the shore's back. Of course! Anything to stop this!
A good excuse for an adventure.
I'm gonna continue to sniffle and give a thumbs up.
It's so cute.
It's cat claws.
Tomorrow morning, you will leave Baldur's Gate aboard the Diviner, a keelboat bound for the Cloakwood. It will sail out to the Sea of Swords and then south down the Sword Coast. The Diviner will have one of our Harpers as its crew member. Albrax is a mage who can drive the vessel, which is stocked with plenty of food and water for the 3-day journey. On the 3rd day of the journey, the ship will arrive at the seaside cave connected to Zaldera's tower. When you hear my horn blow, it will signal the Harper assault, and at that point, you need to move as quickly as possible to find the phylactery to minimize the number of Harper casualties. The longer you take, the more of us die. The sooner you find the spellbook, the sooner the violence happening above you can end.
You have a general location, or is it just we're going in blind?
All we know is that it's somewhere within the cellar.
Okay.
I'm gonna pat Nick's character on the back and I'll be like, no pressure then, right?
And I will respond back, oddly enough, this sounds eerily reminiscent of what I went through before I left Chult. But at least this time I have a cause to believe in.
Not the first time I had to sort out a cellar.
Now, once this spellbook is found, you should return to the Diviner. Calibrax will teleport you and the phylactery to me. Then we can confront Zaldera using her phylactery, and force her to surrender. I would like you each to have the chance to rest and buy supplies before leaving on the Diviner tomorrow. Gather what you need, and meet at the docks.
Okay.
Unfortunately for you, Matt, this isn't a wine cellar.
That was only one time. Well, 1.5 times.
1.5, okay. The other half is beer.
So,
Dwarven ale.
as for Melia, is there an underwater entrance that we could possibly bypass everything in for the phylactery?
Zaldera is extremely intelligent. She is only allowed for one entrance into her lair, and one back entrance. The cave and the tower are the only 2 ways of getting in. We have also learned that magic prevents you from teleporting out of the cellar as well as into it. Running in and running out are the only ways to enter.
Sounds a lot like a trap then.
And it very well could be. which is precisely why the Harpers will be distracting her on top set. Alright. As your characters part ways, and the mourners head home, is there anything that you guys wish to buy before your trip to Zaldera's cellar?
I have no money.
We're going in the back way, right? So, like, the cave?
Yes, we're going through the cave. The Harpers will go through the top side and distract her and her forces in the tower.
It would probably be within our best interest to check out cave diving.
I'm going to look at everybody and I'm going to say, I'm not used to having to sneak for fear of live things in dungeons and stuff. Usually everything's long dead. Will it be an issue if I bring my torches? For I cannot see in the dark.
Well,
Romalia responds with, I highly doubt the Zaldera's forces are considered alive. As a lich, most of hers are likely undead creatures, so perhaps you'll be at home.
I meant moving.
Sorry.
Many of these creatures live in the dark. They may be light sensitive, which could draw them to you.
it makes you feel things better. Well, I cannot see in the dark.
However, it may behoove you to gather them anyway, because drawing the enemy to you is far better than not seeing the enemy at all.
That is true.
I'd rather draw them to me than run into a wall and have them drawn to me when I can't see them.
Alright. Now, does anyone need to buy anything before we take our rest and then leave in the morning?
Has to be most interested in like grappling hook.
Say again?
Maybe we should look at getting like grappling hooks, stuff like that for like climbing stuff.
Or a pole. We should probably get a pole. Poles are pretty good when you're breaking into places.
I have a 10-foot pole.
Oh, you have one. Okay.
I have rope.
I have a crowbar.
And a grappling hook would be 2 gold.
Which is a battering ram.
Crowbar.
Good to go then. What's more like
I
actual
also
fun
have
here?
a hair.
How much is it for climbing gear?
A portable ram is 4 gold.
Oh, okay.
And let's take a look for climbing gear. $25 gold for a climber's kit.
Ooh, can I just buy a grappling hook?
2 gold.
How
I
much
have
for climbing
here.
gear?
I have
25.
25 gold for a climber's
Okay,
kit.
I'll take a climbing kit.
Alright?
Pull out his pockets and a little offer comes in.
Oh, Palu, I have this. A hood lantern.
Oh, nice.
And double through bag. These oil for the hooded lantern.
Alright. So, you each have a full night of rest.
Tomb of Annihilation.